Hello everyone, welcome to the Wuxia Audiobook. Today, we will continue to the next part of the series Renegade Immortal.
Chapter 91, Extreme Yin Spiritual Energy. Tang Huayan carefully walked through the jungle with his divine sense spread out. His face suddenly lit up with joy as he found Wang Lin. Just as he was about to teleport, a gust of eerie wind blew, followed by a somber voice. "Get the hell out of here." Tang Huayan's expression suddenly changed. He quickly backed up a few steps without a thought and looked around. He only saw a dark fog flying in from the distance. The dark fog was surrounded by eerie winds. A withered hand extended from the dark fog and reached toward Tang Huayan. Tang Huayan scanned the fog with his divine sense and became frightened. This person's cultivation level was mid-stage nascent soul, causing him to back up again. The withered hand lightly waved. A giant hand appeared and tried to grab Tang Huayan. Tang Huayan wryly smiled. He turned around and ran without any hesitation, because a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator was not something he could mess with. He knew that there was a powerful cultivator here, but he didn't expect it to be a mid-stage nascent soul one. Tang Huayan disappeared in the blink of an eye. The hand let out a cold snort and disappeared as well. Tang Huayan appeared in the sky outside the forest. His expression suddenly changed as a giant hand silently appeared behind him and mercilessly grabbed toward him. Tang Huayan secretly complained. He quickly took out a beast's skin. He pointed with his hand and the beast's skin wrapped around him and moved him away, barely escaping the giant hand. Despite all of this, he was still hit by the fingers of the giant hand. He coughed out blood and his face became pale, but he quickly escaped without even looking back. A black fog appeared in the air. The fog slowly shrunk until it revealed a person. The person was completely dried up and looked like a bag of bones. He looked at the direction Tang Huayan escaped toward. However, he didn't chase, but returned to the forest. He calmly flew around back and forth in the jungle as if he was looking for something. Shortly after, he stopped above an open area. He stared at the ground without any emotion. He slammed the ground with his hand and with a bang, a large crack appeared in the ground. The moment the crack appeared, a scream came from the ground as a dark figure flew out, trying to escape. The withered man let out a cold snort and a cage surrounded the area. The dark figure hit the cage and bounced back. It no longer tried to run away, but kneeled down and started kowtowing. The withered man slowly said, "After not seeing it for 100 years, I didn't expect Master's body to turn into a zombie and even form its own soul. You are still considered someone of my generation, so I can let you live, but you must use your connection to the Master to help me find him." The zombie quickly nodded as he stared with fear in his eyes at the withered man. The withered man waved his hand and the cage disappeared. He stared at the zombie and darkly said, "Come, take me to Master. If you can help me find Master's nascent soul, then once I devour it and free myself, I'll help you evolve into a demon." The zombie was startled and revealed a joyous expression. It quickly nodded and ran off into the jungle. The man emotionlessly followed. At that moment, somewhere in the ruins where the sunshine didn't reach, the blue-skinned man looked toward Wang Lin's direction with a lingering expression. As for Wang Lin, although he had absorbed a large amount of yin energy, it was all only rank 6 or 7 good quality. With this quality, no matter much was absorbed, the change to his spiritual energy wasn't much and it was no longer good enough for him to make more breakthroughs. He turned his gaze to deeper in the ruin. His target was over there. He decided to explore a bit and find where the highest quality yin energy was. After all, the higher the quality, the higher the success rate of a breakthrough. At midnight of this day, Wang Lin's hand formed the seal for the yin energy detection technique as he walked through the ruins. After walking for a distance, the red light flashed rapidly and, with a pop, it split into two. The moment the red light turned into two, Wang Lin revealed a happy expression. He knew that this meant that the yin energy had surpassed ordinary quality and had reached good quality. As he kept walking forward, the two red lights kept glowing as the rank increased. Good quality rank 2, rank 3, until rank 5. Wang Lin stopped. Before him was a wide road with a ruined building on each side. It was clear that a long time ago, this was a very populated area. Wang Lin calculated the distance for a bit and realized that he hadn't even traveled 1/1000th of the radius of the city, so he started to move faster. The red light released by the technique was very eye-catching in the night. Wang Lin's divine sense was spread out, constantly checking his surroundings. The quality of the yin energy kept increasing. Good quality rank 6, 7, 8. The sun rose and fell. On the fourth day, Wang Lin had already entered the depths of the ruins. He guessed that his current position was the center of the city. If it was not the center, it wasn't far from it. On the way here, he saw dozens of deep pits, meters wide, filled with rainwater. There were also mysterious snakes that would jump out at Wang Lin with their poisonous fangs. In addition to this, the destruction in the ruins became even worse. On the path to his current location, there were no structures taller than 10 meters. Besides the overgrown grass area, there was a swamp. There were also some mysterious creatures living in the swamp. Once, Wang Lin was almost eaten by one of those creatures, making him even more alert of his surroundings. Despite going so deep into the ruins, the quality of the yin energy still never reached dense quality. On the night of the fifth day, he walked out of the swamp and before him was a large group of buildings. Although all of the buildings had collapsed, you could still see how populated this place must have been. The most eye-catching spot was the 1,000-meter wide and 100-meter deep hole in the ground. This giant hole was very strange. Normally speaking, this hole should be filled with rainwater, but there was no liquid inside it at all. Wang Lin took a closer look. Although it was night and there was dense yin energy in the way, Wang Lin could still clearly see the beehive-like caves at the bottom of the giant hole. The moment Wang Lin reached the edge of the hole to inspect them, the red light in his hand suddenly reacted. The red light fused into one, then split into 3, indicating that the yin energy here had reached good quality. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He didn't rush in, but carefully walked around the hole. When he was on the opposite side, the 3 lights fused back into one and became 2 again. He understood that the reason the yin energy reached good quality was this giant hole. Wang Lin rubbed his chin. After pondering for a while, he didn't immediately jump in, but sat down and decided to wait for morning. Before long, it turned into day. The moment the yin energy dissipated, Wang Lin jumped into the giant hole. The moment he landed, the small green flying sword came out, releasing a cold aura. Wang Lin raised his head and looked into the sky. With how deep this hole was, it should have been filled with rainwater after all these years. Wang Lin's eyes squinted and he focused his gaze on the countless beehive-like holes at the bottom of the giant hole. Although he didn't know how deep the holes were, all of the water must have drained through them. He touched the holes and found that they were damp, reaffirming his previous thoughts. After carefully checking the surroundings and finding no danger, he sat down cross-legged and waited for night to come. The sun set and night came. As the yin energy flooded in, all of the beasts ran away, not willing to spend the night here. The light before Wang Lin became brighter and brighter as it turned from 1 to 2, then from 2 to 3. Normal quality rank 4, 6, 8, 10. Good quality rank 3, 6, 10 and broke through to dense quality. It was still not midnight yet and the quality of the yin energy had already reached rank 1 dense quality. Wang Lin exposed a happy expression. He spread out his divine sense and found that the reason the yin energy quality was higher here had something to do with the holes in the ground. He could see slivers of yin energy coming out of the holes and mix with the surrounding yin energy. As time passed, the red light shone even brighter and reached rank 2 dense quality. When midnight arrived, the yin energy had reached rank 5 dense quality. Wang Lin no longer hesitated and quickly started to cultivate. With more and more yin energy gathered at his chest, he found one difference. The purity of the yin energy was more than 10 times higher than before. A change in quality could cause a change in quantity. This meant that 1 minute of gathering yin energy now was like more than 10 minutes of gathering yin energy before. Soon, the yin energy at his chest started to form a swirl and spin. As the swirl spun faster and faster, the unexpected change that occurred last time happened again. The yin energy within 100 feet of Wang Lin fluctuated and rushed toward him. As the swirl in his chest absorbed more yin energy, it became larger. Soon, it reached last time's size of 1,000 feet in radius. The range kept increasing. 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, 1,500 feet. Within a 10-kilometer radius, The yin energy moved as if it were being manipulated as it rushed toward Wang Lin and was devoured. As the yin energy that swirled in his chest grew larger and larger, he started to feel like he was losing control. Knowing his limits, he controlled the yin energy to start attempting the first breakthrough of his Qi. The yin energy swirl was like a spinning blade repeatedly stabbing at the Qi to open it. Slowly, the Qi showed signs of opening. The sign grew stronger and stronger. If you compared this breakthrough to trying to destroy a stone wall, then this wall was now filled with cracks and was ready to collapse. After 1 hour, the Qi was no longer able to withstand it and collapsed with a bang. Large amounts of human potential exploded from the Qi like a volcano. It quickly mixed with the yin energy, forming a very powerful yin force. Currently, the spiritual energy in his dantian became restless. It quickly moved toward the newly formed yin force and started to devour it. Whenever a sliver of yin force was formed, Wang Lin's spiritual energy would devour it to strengthen itself. Gradually, as Wang Lin's spiritual energy devoured all the yin force, his spiritual energy became even stronger. A nebula-like scene appeared in Wang Lin's Qi. Waves of blue spiritual energy spread out from the nebula. Wang Lin felt the very strange spiritual energy in his body. His eyes lit up as he lightly touched a stone next to him. In an instant, there was a flash of blue light and the stone was completely frozen, releasing yin energy. Wang Lin took a deep breath and quickly kicked the frozen stone. With a series of crackling sounds, the stone broke into many pieces. Wang Lin carefully checked and quickly sucked in a breath of cold air. Upon closer inspection, he found that the internal structure of the stone was constantly changing. This was no longer rock, but more of an ice crystal structure. In other words, with one touch of his spiritual power, he didn't just freeze the stone, but completely changed its structure to ice. Wang Lin didn't know that after a session of devouring the yin energy, his spiritual energy had undergone a great change. Even if Situnan was awake right now, he wouldn't be able to figure this out. In ancient cultivation times, besides the different ranks in cultivation level, there were also 3 ranks for spiritual energy, which were Ji, Dao, and Shi. The 3 realms weren't ranked in any order, but advance in parallel. Once a realm had been entered, one couldn't switch to another realm. The difficulty to enter the 3 realms wasn't high, but it wasn't easy either. It all depended on luck in the end. In ancient cultivation times, any knowledgeable cultivators would know not to choose the Ji realm. While the offensive power of the Ji realm was high, there were too many drawbacks. One of the most deadly drawbacks was that once one walked the path of Ji, one could only use Ji spiritual energy, which presented a huge issue in breaking through to the soul formation stage from the nascent soul stage. Soul formation required one to integrate with the world and not walk an extreme path. However, even with those downsides, the Ji realm also had a lot of benefits. It could be said that people of the same cultivation level couldn't defend against Ji realm at all. Although one had no chance of reaching the soul formation stage, after reaching the peak of the nascent soul stage, one could become the number 1 of everyone below the soul formation stage. More importantly, with the increase in cultivation, Ji realm cultivators didn't even need magic treasures because their Ji realm spiritual power was already the most powerful type of spiritual energy. As for the Dao realm, it was the dream of all cultivators. Once your spiritual energy entered the Dao realm, then entering the soul formation stage was very easy. Because of this, the Dao realm was the most sought-after realm in the ancient cultivation world. As for the Shi realm, if Ji realm was death, then Qi realm was life. It was not a realm people below soul formation could comprehend, and even for soul formation cultivators, it was something they could only wish to have. The 3 spiritual energy realms were very difficult to grasp, and with the destruction of the ancient cultivation world, the information about the 3 realms gradually disappeared. The cultivators now wouldn't mind their spiritual energy. The only thing they minded was their cultivation level. Wang Lin didn't know that because of all the yin energy he devoured, his spiritual energy changed to the Ji realm. The reason for all this was because of the underworld ascension method. It was one of the few methods that could create Ji realm spiritual energy. However, the underworld ascension method Situnan gave Wang Lin wasn't like the one from the ancient cultivation world. With the passage of time, parts of the methods were lost and it was their successors that reorganized the remaining information. As for Wang Lin's spiritual energy entering the door to Ji realm, the most important factor was the heaven-defying bead. Wang Lin stared at his fingertips and his eyes lit up. Just at that moment, he raised his head and jumped out of the hole. He looked and saw the blue-skinned man quickly closing in. Chapter 92, Corpse Yin Sect, 1. Wang Lin chuckled. He no longer felt much hostility toward this strange blue person. He felt like stretching his body, so he quickly dashed forward like a rabbit. The distance between the two quickly shortened. When the strange blue person saw Wang Lin charging toward him, his eyes locked onto Wang Lin, ready for battle. However, he let out a laugh when he noticed that Wang Lin wasn't using the green sword. He stopped, completely forgetting the reason he came here in the first place, and prepared for battle. Without any hesitation, he ripped off a talisman that released a blue gas. He sucked the blue gas into his body and his aura suddenly became a lot stronger. His eyes revealed a serious expression as he spat out a few words in his strange language, as if he was trying to tell Wang Lin something. Wang Lin knew that the talismans on the blue man were very strange. Even after receiving a heavy injury from Wang Lin, with just one talisman, the blue man was able to completely recover. After that, Wang Lin became very curious about the talismans. Now, the strange man ripped off another yellow talisman and his strength suddenly doubled. Without a word, Wang Lin waved his hand. His spiritual energy cycled through his body and his aura suddenly changed as well. Slivers of blue energy hovered around him. A cold aura surrounded his body and an extremely cold expression appeared on his face. The strange man's eyes lit up. He opened his mouth and spat out a word that Wang Lin could understand, strength. With that, he formed a fist. His arm glowed and grew larger as he threw a punch at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. The yin spiritual energy inside his body came out and formed a fist that collided with the strange man's fist in the air. In the moment of impact, the strange man entered a strange posture. He had one foot was on the ground while leaning toward the left and he started breathing in a strange pattern. Suddenly, a gust of wind swirled around with him as the center, blowing away all the nearby rocks, creating a clean, open area around them. Wang Lin's face turned red and he involuntarily backed up 3 steps as he stared at the strange man. The strange man's heart was in even more of a shock than Wang Lin. He could clearly feel the strange yin spiritual energy entering his body from Wang Lin's fist. The cold energy spread out throughout his body with waves of extreme coldness. If it wasn't for all of the strange symbols on his body, which helped him contain this cold energy, his whole body would have already been frozen solid. Looking at his right hand, which was completely frozen, he was horrified to find that all the muscles and bones in his right arm had become ice. He looked at Wang Lin with his face pale and said another word Wang Lin could understand, Ji? Wang Lin didn't say anything. Because he didn't know what Ji meant, he shook his head. The strange man was stunned. He ripped off another talisman, causing white and green colored gas to appear. After the gas disappeared, his right arm returned to normal, but Wang Lin could see that his arm was trembling. He looked at Wang Lin and let out a snort. He blabbed for a while before finally leaving. Wang Lin looked at the strange man until he was gone, then sat down to recall the battle. The energy in the strange man's punch was very strange. It didn't seem to be spiritual energy, but some other type of energy. Strength? He remembered the word the strange man shouted before throwing out that punch. Ignoring the strange punch the strange man threw, Wang Lin was very happy with the power of his yin spiritual energy. He named this type of spiritual energy that could change the structure of things Ji-yen spiritual energy. Ji? This was what the strange man said after seeing his power. Wang Lin muttered to himself, it is about time to leave. Once I reach the 5th layer of the underworld ascension method, it will be time to leave. I must find more extreme earth yin locations, I must. Wang Lin knew that he must find extreme yin because in order to break through to higher layers of the underworld ascension method, he would need higher quality yin energy. Although the ruins had dense yin energy, Wang Lin knew that the yin energy here was only around rank 10 dense quality. It may be able to reach rank 1 extreme quality at most. It has to be said that among heaven, earth, mystery, and underworld yin energies, the difference between mystery and underworld wasn't big, but the difference between them and earth and heaven was enormous. Rank 1 good quality earth yin energy was the same as rank 1 extreme quality mystery or underworld yin energy. As for the heaven yin energy that one could only wish for, just rank 1 of ordinary rank was as good as rank 1 extreme quality mystery and underworld energy. While he was pondering, he lifted his head and saw that the strange man was returning. After the strange man came back, he gestured to Wang Lin for a while. The strange man pointed at the surroundings, sucked in a deep breath, then vigorously shook his head. Then, he pointed at Wang Lin, then at himself, and made a bunch of gestures. Wang Lin gradually began to understand what this strange person wanted. It seemed the strange man wanted Wang Lin to follow him. Curious, Wang Lin nodded. The strange man moved very fast. He was very familiar with the surroundings and avoided all the dangerous pits in the swamp. The strange man even entered a fissure in the ground and went into the tunnels underground. After a while, Wang Lin was shocked that they had traveled past the vast swamp area so quickly. 2 days later, the two of them arrived at a deserted corner of the ruins. During these 2 days, the two of them had only stopped to rest once. After they arrived, Wang Lin noticed an intact tower nearby. At the top of that tower was a stone bead almost 2 meters wide. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. This stone bead was almost exactly the same as the one in the ruins. The strange man didn't stop and climbed to the top of the tower. He formed a few seals and touched the stone bead. A ray of light shot out from the stone bead toward the center of the ruin. From a distance, the pillar of light seemed endless. After doing all of that, the strange man jumped down. He waved his hand toward Wang Lin and the two of them left the place. Time passed. Wang Lin followed the strange man going from one bead to the next. In most places, the towers had already collapsed, but the stone beads were all in perfect condition. One by one, the stone beads were started and the lights all shot toward the center of the city. When the last stone bead, which was the first one Wang Lin saw, started, the entire city seemed to have changed. Along the way, Wang Lin secretly calculated that there were 8 of these stone beads. The strange man looked into the sky and revealed an anxious look. The two of them rushed toward the center of the city without any rest. At dusk on the 4th day, the two arrived outside the center of the city. The 8 pillars of light were gathered here. The strange man stopped and bowed. His eyes were filled with devotion as he let out song-like words. As his voice became more and more acute, the earth shook as a 100-meter-tall statue rose from the ground. The statue rose halfway up before stopping. The statue was that of a man with long hair. The man looked quaint, his eye intelligent, and his hand held a 100-meter-long spear as he looked into the distance. Around his body was a coiled dragon with its mouth open, as if it was going to attack. The scales on the dragon were so detailed that they almost looked real. The 8 rays of light gathered at the statue and the eyes of the statue became brighter and brighter. Wang Lin felt like the illusion of this man with long hair was alive. After the statue appeared, the devotion in the strange man's eyes became even deeper. He waved at Wang Lin and urgently pointed at the mouth of the dragon. Wang Lin pondered a little. Without a word, he jumped up several times and arrived near the dragon's head. The moment he got up there, he felt a powerful yin energy coming from below his feet. Wang Lin immediately sat down and formed a seal, making a red light appear. The red light immediately split into 4 and flashed rapidly until all 4 exploded. Wang Lin was in shock. He knew that this meant that the energy in this place had reached the limit of underworld yin energy. It reached extreme quality. Surprised, he quickly started to cultivate and absorb the yin energy. However, this time, the suction range wasn't large and was focused entirely in the few meters around him. From a distance, it looked like a red sphere had appeared and surrounded the dragon's head. Wang Lin sat there for 5 days. In these 5 days, the strange man waited and became more and more anxious each day. He looked into the sky as if something was going to be attracted by the statue. The 9 talismans on his body moved without any wind. Silly, he was ready to take them off at any time. The Chi-Si was finally opened on the 3rd day and reformed in the early morning of the 5th day. The 5th layer of the underworld ascension method was complete. One more step, then he could form his 2nd cold core. When that was complete, he wouldn't fear late-stage foundation establishment cultivators anymore. Even now, He no longer feared mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. Next, he tried to raise the quality of his yin spiritual energy by mixing in the extreme quality yin energy. While he was controlling the fusion, he was also observing his own spiritual energy. He noticed that his spiritual energy turned darker and went from blue to dark blue. He didn't know that his spiritual power was even closer to the G realm. At that moment, the world suddenly changed. The sky darkened and the clouds moved as if someone was pushing them with a large hand. Dark fog gathered until it formed the shape of a coffin. An illusionary figure slowly appeared on top of the coffin, its body quickly becoming more solid. A hoarse voice came from the sky. "You mean to say that Master's nascent soul is hiding inside the statue?" The strange man's expression changed greatly. Chapter 93, Corpse Yin Sect, 2. The strange man's face suddenly changed. He removed the 9 talismans from his body, then jumped up to where Wang Lin was. He ripped apart the red sphere without any hesitation and grabbed Wang Lin. Wang Lin woke up the moment those two arrived. He noticed the panic in the strange man's face and allowed himself to be dragged down from the statue. The moment the two landed, the strange man made a seal and put his hand on the statue. A black portal appeared and the strange man dragged Wang Lin into it. At the same time, the 8 pillars of light disappeared and the statue started to slowly sink back into the ground. At that moment, the young man's body solidified. His body looked like a mummy's and his expression was cold. The zombie emitting an awful stench was standing next to him. The young man stared at the slowly sinking statue. He spread out his divine sense over the whole area, then his gaze returned to the statue. As for Wang Lin, the moment he was dragged into the statue by the strange person, he spread out his divine sense and revealed a surprised expression. The space inside the statue wasn't very large. There were white crystals floating around and there was a black, stone person sitting in the center. The stone person's appearance was exactly the same as the statue's outside. There were slivers of purple lines connecting the stone person to the statue. Soon, a light curtain appeared in the space. The light fluctuated a bit and displayed the scene from outside. Through the light curtain, Wang Lin could see what was going on outside. He then looked at the strange person and immediately noticed the great amount of hatred in his eyes. The young man stood outside the statue. He stared at the statue and slowly said, "Master, 100 years passed by so quickly. This time, you won't be able to run away." Wang Lin sucked in a breath. He turned around and stared at the strange man. He asked, "You are his master?" The strange man blankly stared at Wang Lin. Just at that moment, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he spat out a green light. The green light flashed across the space and mercilessly lunged toward the stone person sitting in the air. A ray of purple light appeared to block the sword, but the sword teleported past the purple light and stabbed the stone peron. A violent roar echoed throughout the space as a ball of light escaped from the stone person. Wang Lin waved his hand and the sword turned around and shot toward the ball of light. The strange man finally reacted and his eyes were filled with anxiousness. He stared at Wang Lin with anger hidden in his eyes as he pointed at the sword and shouted a few times. Wang Lin was stunned. Just at that moment, a very hoarse voice came out from the ball of light. "Little friend, please don't be impulsive. I don't mean any harm. I am the master of the person outside." At the same time, countless rays of light gathered from all directions at the ball of light. Slowly, the ball of light turned into a small person 1 foot tall. This little person looked very weak. His face was pale and he looked like a kid. The little person kept dodging the green sword while looking at Wang Lin with an ashen face. The strange person let out an angry roar and was about to block the flying sword. Wang Lin backed up a few steps the moment the little person spoke. He waved his hand and the flying sword returned to his side. The flying sword circled around Wang Lin with the tip pointing at the little person. The strange person walked up to the little man. He shouted angrily at Wang Lin a few times, his eyes filled with disappointment. The little person bitterly laughed. His body floated up and landed on the shoulder of the strange person. He said, "A day, don't be rude to our guest." The strange person's expression suddenly eased, but he still cautiously looked at Wang Lin. The little person sighed. He looked at Wang Lin and warmly said, "Little friend, please don't be rash, Before he could finish speaking, the man outside said a strange word. The moment the strange word came out, the whole statue shook and stopped descending. The little person's expression slightly changed. His hand formed a seal as he spat out purple gas. The moment the purple gas appeared, it entered the statue. The statue's eyes shined a purple light and continued to descend. The young man let out a cold snort. He grabbed at the air and the statue shook again. It started to sink slower. At the same time, he sent out many seals, causing the statue to tremble, but the statue still stood. The small person inside the statue let out a relieved look, but he looked even more tired. He said to Wang Lin, "This statue can last half an hour under the attack of Amu, more than enough time for me to tell you the story behind all of this." Wang Lin didn't say a word as he stared at the little person. The little person sighed and said, "My name is Wu. Has little friend ever heard of the corpse sect?" Wang Lin's expression remained normal with the small sword next to him as he shook his head. Wu bitterly smiled and said, "Little friend doesn't need to be alert. I am only a nascent soul without a body. Coupled with countless uses of nascent energy throughout the years, I am no threat to you. It is your sword that almost killed me." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering a little, he asked, "Who is that person outside? Are you his master?" Wu Yu's eyes revealed a helpless expression. He answered, "He is my corpse puppet. Alas, I was one of ancestors of the corpse sect. The corpse sect had a rule stating that every disciple that joins must find a corpse to make their own corpse puppet. As our own cultivation level increased, the corpse puppet would grow as well." Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as he asked, "Your corpse puppet rebelled?" Wu wryly smiled. He nodded and said, "That is right. Originally, with the technique used, the corpse puppet could never rebel. Unfortunately, I came to this place 300 years ago, hoping to use the yin energy here to break past early-stage nascent soul. Not only did I fail, but my corpse puppet took the opportunity to seriously injure me. During the shock of the injury, he was able to escape from my control. At that moment, the statue started to tremble even harder." The little person revealed an anxious look and quickly continued, "I had to retreat to heal my injuries, so I didn't chase after it. 100 years later, when my injuries got better, I found my corpse puppet. However, he had managed to gain his own consciousness and even had a lucky encounter, causing him to enter mid-stage nascent soul before me. I didn't stand a chance, so I gave up my body and escaped with my nascent soul. My nascent soul took heavy injuries and has been hiding inside this statue ever since. I'm too afraid to go out. That zombie was my body from back then. It seems to have gained its own consciousness in these 100 years in this place." Wang Lin coldly smiled and said, "What a bunch of nonsense. If that corpse puppet is really as you say, why didn't it leave instead of continuing to look for you?" Wu wryly smiled. He hesitated for a bit and said, "Forget it. Little friend, you don't know, but this is related to the corpse sect's secrets. Although this corpse puppet is out of my control, I have still refined it for hundreds of years. It is connected to my soul, so if it goes more than 100 kilometers away from me, it will die. The only way to fix this problem is to swallow my nascent soul and seal it within him. Only by doing that would he truly escape my control." Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he said, "He never found you in these few hundred years." Wu touched the inner side of the statue and said, "When I was running away, I accidentally entered this statue. This statue can hide my presence. Only with the help of the statue did I survive. Also, after the corpse puppet reached mid-stage nascent soul, every time it came out, it would need to rest after a while. Every rest takes about 100 years. That is another reason why I haven't been eaten yet." Wang Lin's expression was calm as he slowly asked, "Oh? Then why haven't you escaped during the 100 years he was sleeping?" "I have tried to escape countless times, but this jungle is surrounded by a vast fog. This fog is very harmful to the nascent soul. I can't withstand touching it even a little. The corpse puppet can't find me, but I didn't expect my body to gain its own consciousness. With the connection between me and my body, it was able to find me. Also, a day did things on his own and made the statue appear for you, which attracted them. Alas, this is my own fault. I can't blame anyone else." Wu wryly smiled and continued, "Little friend, a day has already told me about what happened between you and him. If it was 300 years ago, I would have tried to possess your body, but I have already wasted my chance on trying to possess a day. Now, I won't have another chance until I reach mid-stage nascent soul. Wang Lin didn't believe a word of what this little person said, but his expression remained normal. He looked at the strange person and asked, "His name is Ade?" Wu nodded and said, "Little friend, I found Ade in this statue. When I entered here, I found Ade sleeping and tried to take possession of this body. However, his body contains a very strange power. After using the majority of my nascent energy on his body, I was finally able to escape. Although I failed in possessing him, this allowed Ade to wake up and caused him to have the feeling that our lives are connected. From then on, I knew that there would probably be no chance for me to escape until Ade told me about you." With that, a flash of excitement entered Wu Yu's eyes. Wang Lin didn't speak, but quietly stared at the little person, waiting for the rest. Wu revealed a pleading expression and said, "I beg little friend here to please help me." Chapter 94, Corpse Yin Sect, 3. Wu revealed a pleading expression and quickly said, "I can't leave this place, but I would like to ask you to go to the corpse sect and ask my senior apprentice brother, Yizi, to come and save me." Wang Lin's expression didn't change. "Do you have a way for me to leave without being noticed by the corpse puppet?" he asked. Wu quickly nodded and sincerely said, "I can use the last of my nascent energy to open up a transfer array that will take you directly to the corpse sect." Wang Lin stared at Wu. He faintly smiled and said, "If you can open up the transfer array, why don't you go back through it?" Wu sighed and said, "The corpse puppet can't go more than 100 kilometers away from me, and I can't go 100 kilometers away from him. If the corpse puppet leaves the 100-kilometer range, it would immediately die. If I still had my body, my soul would take a heavy injury, but now I am just a nascent soul. I really don't want to die with the corpse puppet." The frequency at which the statue was trembling was increasing. Wu saw that Wang Lin's expression still hadn't changed. He clenched his jaw and said, "I, Wu, swear on my nascent soul that I mean you no harm, so please help me, little friend. I can even give today to you." The 9 talismans were already on his body when I found him and they contain unimaginable power. In addition, I can feel that your spiritual energy contains yin properties. I also use the yin method of cultivation. I assume you came here to use the yin energy for cultivation. The yin energy here is the underworld type of yin energy. If you go to the corpse sect, there is a cultivation spot that has earth type yin energy. Wang Lin narrowed his eyes and said, "If the corpse sect has a location with earth type yin energy, why did you come here to make your breakthrough?" Wu gave Wang Lin a deep glance. This youth was very careful. No matter how much he tried to convince him, Wang Lin's expression didn't change at all. After hearing Wang Lin's question, he wryly smiled and said, "Little friend, I have already sworn upon my nascent soul. This corpse puppet is not the same as a living being. Every time it is about to make a breakthrough, it must absorb underworld type yin energy, so I brought it here." Just at that moment, the statue shook violently and cracks appeared all over its body. A series of crackling sounds could be heard as the cracks became larger and the statue seemed to be about to collapse. Wu Yu's expression suddenly became very anxious and said, "Little friend, if you want to cultivate your yin technique at the corpse sect, you can pretend to be my disciple. I'll teleport you directly to the corpse sect and they won't suspect a thing. Little friend, consider it yourself." The moment he finished speaking, the statue suddenly shook violently. The cracks now covered the entire statue and some parts even started to fall off. Wang Lin's mind spun. He knew that if he didn't leave, his life would be in danger when that corpse puppet broke in. He instantly knew that the corpse puppet was a cold-hearted killer. Thinking about that, he nodded toward Wu without a word. Wu took a deep breath. Both of his hands constantly formed seals as a pentagonal ring slowly appeared before him. This ring of light emitted a rainbow color and a small suction force could be felt. At that moment, the statue broke with a bang and a cold voice came in. "Master, I want to see where you will run to now." Wu revealed a horrified expression. Without waiting for the transfer array to completely open, he shouted, "Little friend, go quickly. Whether I survive or not is all in your hands." With that, he flew into the stone person floating in the air. At the same time, Wang Lin charged toward the transfer array. The transfer array was unstable and seemed like it might collapse. The strange person hesitated for a bit and followed Wang Lin into the transfer array. Just at that moment, the statue completely collapsed. The young man came in with a mocking smile. However, the moment he saw the transfer array, his expression drastically changed. As for Wang Lin, after he entered the transfer array, he found himself inside a tunnel. He could feel his body being stretched and there were countless specks of lights flashing by like the stars in the sky. Wang Lin looked back. He saw a day behind him, looking left and right. After a day noticed that Wang Lin was looking at him, he shouted a few strange words toward Wang Lin. His eyes were no longer cautious of Wang Lin, but were filled with confusion. After an unknown amount of time, a light appeared at the end of the tunnel. The light became larger and larger until it covered most of the tunnel. Wang Lin and Ade felt a suction force from the light and were sucked in. The corpse sect was a demonic sect in Zhao. Although they were weaker than the #1 Sky Demon sect, the corpse sect was much more mysterious. It could be said that the corpse sect was the #1 most mysterious sect in Zhao. How many disciples the sect had, where the sect was located, how many nascent soul cultivators the sect had, and such information were all unknown to the outside world. There were even rumors that the corpse sect had already been completely wiped out. In short, this was a very low-profile sect, but this kind of low profile was something the world could never forget about. The only thing people knew about the corpse sect was their cultivation method. The disciples of the corpse sect only had one chance to refine a corpse. Once they refine one, they will never refine another. This was a very miraculous technique. For the corpse sect's disciples, besides their own cultivation, the cultivation of their corpse puppet was also important. The reason this technique was so miraculous was that 500 years ago, a Foundation establishment disciple had a nascent soul corpse puppet. Although this disciple ended up mysteriously disappearing, his appearance caused a stir in Zhao, especially among the lower-level cultivators who now dreamed of joining the corpse sect. But no matter how many people tried to find it, the corpse sect was like a floating cloud that no one could find. In a location in the far west side of Zhao was an area surrounded by yin energy all year round. Even cultivators didn't come here often. Because aside from the fact that this area was shrouded with yin energy, there was also the 9 earth energy that not even nascent soul cultivators were willing to touch. Anyone below the nascent soul stage would be injured from touching it. Supposedly, areas with this many restrictions should be hiding some sort of big treasure. This was the idea in many cultivators' heads. Finally, a few of the demonic sects got together with their experts and broke the restrictions to search the area. But what surprised everyone was that there was nothing there at all. Some of the people expanded their search to the underground and still found nothing. This treasure hunt turned into a joke. They were mocked by the orthodox sects. Gradually, due to the fact that this place had many restrictions and no treasure, it was forgotten by everyone. At the center of the plain was an area covered by fog. Inside the fog was a marsh that took up most of the area, and under the marsh was a giant cave. There were numerous tunnels connecting the giant cave to smaller caves and tunnels from those caves to others. The entire underground area was covered with big and small caves connected to each other. This was where the most mysterious demonic sect of Zhao, the corpse sect, was located. The largest cave in the center was the size of several of the Heng Yue sect's main hall. Inside were 8 pillars of purple wood, forming a formation. There were endless waves of purple energy emitting from the wood pillars. There were countless strange symbols and patterns carved into the 8 wood pillars. There were also strings of light connecting them. If one looked at them from above, they could see that those lights formed a total of 49 rings of light. Sitting on the 8 wood pillars were 8 young men. A coffin floated behind each one of them. 5 of the rings lit up and a youth wearing blue and a coffin appeared in the cave. One of the 8 youths on the pillars opened his eyes and looked at the person who had just arrived. He spoke with no emotion in his voice at all. "Where did you came from?" The blue-robed youth quickly bowed and said, "Rank 2 Cultivation Country Lu Corp's Sect Branch. I, Lin Yi, am here to participate in the promotion exam." The youth coldly glanced at the person and said, "The 18th cave to the right, go." The blue-robed youth respectfully clasped his hands and exited the formation. Afterward, he calculated for a bit and entered a cave. The youth on the pillar slightly nodded. He no longer minded the blue-robed youth and closed his eyes. Within the next several hours, more people came out of the transfer array. The strongest person to come caused 13 rings to light up. The moment the 13 rings lit up, 2 of the 8 youths opened their eyes. Time slowly passed. The rings in the formation lit up again. This time, it was 6 rings. A youth on a wood pillar opened his eyes. Just at that moment, there was a sudden flash of light and 7 more rings lit up. What is this? At that moment, another youth opened his eyes. The two looked at each other, then carefully looked at the formation. Shortly after, the formation flashed again and the amount of rings to light up increased from 13 to 28. It seems there is a senior coming here. 2 more youths opened their eyes. There was a hint of respect in the 4 youths' cold gazes as they stared at the formation. The moment that was said, there was a rumbling sound coming from the formation as the number of rings of light that were lit up increased from 28 one by one. The remaining 4 youths opened their eyes with shocked expressions. When 40 rings lit up, the 8 of them stood up, kneeled down on one knee, and formed a strange sign as they said, "Welcome, Senior." Chapter 95, Enter the Sect. The moment the word Senior came out, 3 more rings lit up, making it a total of 43 rings. After 43 rings were lit, no more lit up, but they started to shine in sync. The attitude of each of the 8 youths changed again. Their faces were filled with shock, then that changed to a near-crazed level of respect. They went from one knee on the ground to 2 knees as they carefully stared at the transfer array. It has to be said that if 40 rings light up, that means the status of the person in the corpse sect is very high, and if it's above 40, then it is a nascent soul ancestor. With that knowledge, it made sense for the 8 of them to have this reaction. Slowly, the 2 figures that appeared in the formation became more and more solid. One of them was about 20 years old. He looked very handsome, had an air of coolness, and was wearing black clothes that made him look even more upright. Behind him followed a strange, blue-skinned person with countless strange symbols all over his body. The most eye-catching part was the 9 yellow talismans stuck to various parts of his body. The moment the 2 appeared, slivers of cold air spread out. Suddenly, one of the 8 youths let out a surprised sound. Soon, all of them were shocked. This person was Wang Lin. The moment he appeared, he opened his mouth and spat out a green light. The flying sword circled around him, releasing a cold aura with a sword tip pointing at the 8 people on the wood pillars. With a scan of his divine sense, Wang Lin relaxed a bit. All 8 of the youths around him were only at the 15th layer of chi condensation. If he wanted to, he could kill them all in an instant. The strange person, Ade, also for some reason stopped looking around like he was when they were inside the tunnel. He stood behind Wang Lin and stared at the strange symbols on the wood pillars, seemingly lost in thought. The 8 people on the wood pillars stood up. One of them had a strange expression on his face as he asked, "Senior, you are?" Wang Lin already planned out what he was going to say during the trip here. Currently, he was very calm as he coldly said, "I am Wang Lin. Please inform Uncle Master Yi Zai that I have something important to tell him." The youth was startled. He looked at the other youth, then said, "Senior, I can't help you with that. Let me take you to see the elder." Wang Lin nodded. He walked out of the formation and Ade followed behind. The youth jumped off the wood pillar and the coffin followed behind him. "Senior, this way." With that, the youth flew toward one of the tunnels. Without a word, Wang Lin followed the youth. Along the way, the youth secretly inspected Wang Lin. The more he saw, the more respectful he became. After all, strength was everything in the cultivation world, and with Wang Lin's foundation establishment cultivation level, the youth naturally respected Wang Lin. Ade, who was behind Wang Lin, attracted most of the youth's attention. Similarly, Wang Lin was also inspecting the youth, especially the coffin behind him. Waves of cold energy were emitted from the coffin and there was a layer blocking out his divine sense. However, as Wang Lin was a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator, he saw through it with a little effort. There was a corpse inside the coffin. The body was like dry wood and sleeping. The moment Wang Lin saw the corpse woke up. Although its eyes were cloudy, it was filled with killing intent. The youth seemed to notice and smacked the coffin. The corpse closed its eyes and the youth smiled. Senior, this corpse puppet was given to me by my master. Master got it from the outer world battleground. It is very sensitive to divine sense and is filled with killing intent. It took me a very long time to finally refine it. Wang Lin nodded and said, your corpse puppet has early stage foundation establishment cultivation. Not bad. The moment the youth heard those words, he was secretly shocked and his respect for Wang Lin deepened. It has to be said that the coffin has the ability to block out a divine sense, yet Wang Lin was able to see through it instantly. Clearly, Wang Lin was no ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. Maybe even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Thinking of that, his attitude became even more respectful as he asked, Senior, is this your corpse puppet? Wang Lin's expression was calm as he nodded. The youth's face was filled with curiosity as he looked at it a before exclaiming, Senior, how did you get your corpse puppet to be so intelligent? The only other corpse puppet as intelligent is Ancestor Z's flying Luo. Wang Lin looked at the youth and didn't answer. The youth kept looking at Ade, making him very nervous, until Ade couldn't stand it anymore and started to yell at the youth. The youth was startled when he heard Ade speaking and asked, Senior, your corpse puppet has already evolved to the point of speaking? Wang Lin slightly frowned. This person really talks too much, he thought. The youth didn't seem to be aware of how annoying he was and kept talking even though Wang Lin didn't answer. After less than a quarter of an hour of walking, the youth went from talking about Wang Lin's corpse puppet to his fellow disciples, then his own master, the ancestor, and so on. Although Wang Lin was annoyed, he was able to learn a lot about the corpse sect. The Jia branch of the corpse sect is really amazing. People from the upper rank 4 and 5 countries to the lower rank 1 and 2 countries, they all pass through here as a transit point. For example, the corpse sect branches in rank 1 and 2 countries qualification test is held here. The tunnel became wider and wider as the youth kept talking. Wang Lin really couldn't stand the youth's chatter, so when he saw the exit of the tunnel, he immediately sped up and flew toward it. Inside the cave were 5 large stone pillars and on top of each pillar was a large ball of blue flame. On the top of the pillar in the middle sat an old man. He had a very ruddy complexion. His face was red and his hair moved without any wind. While he was cultivating, slivers of gas from the balls of fire entered his body, exited his body, then entered the pillar. The cycle continued. It was very strange. The moment Wang Lin flew into the cave, the old man opened his eyes. His eyes glowed as he carefully examined Wang Lin with a cold gaze. Wang Lin checked with his divine sense and found that the old man was at the mid-stage of foundation establishment. At that moment, the youth also quickly entered the cave and said to the old man, Elder, this senior just arrived through the formation. 43 rings lit up when he arrived and he wants to see Ancestor Yi. After hearing this, the old man's expression suddenly changed. He looked at Wang Lin with a strange expression and asked, Fellow cultivator, who in the corpse sect opened the tunnel for you? Wang Lin calmly answered, Wu. Hearing that name, the old man's expression changed. He stood up and said, Ancestor Wu, who had disappeared for a few hundred years. What? What is your relationship with him? Wang Lin looked at the old man and said, Disciple. The old man sucked in a breath of cold air. Wu Yu's status was extremely high within the corpse sect. If what Wang Lin said was true, then he couldn't afford to offend this person. With that, he quickly smiled and said, So it's Uncle Master returning. Junior's name is Mirong. What is Senior's name? Wang Lin faintly smiled and said, I'm Wang Lin. As for being called Uncle Master, I don't deserve it. Mirong let out a laugh. He turned his head and looked at the youth. His expression went cold as he said, You can go now. I'll lead Uncle Master Wang to Ancestor Yi. The youth quickly agreed. He turned around and muttered to himself before quickly leaving. After the youth left, Mirong invited Wang Lin onto the stone pillar and asked, Brother Wang, why didn't Ancestor come back with you? Wang Lin looked at the person and responded, My master's corpse puppet had some problems, so he is taking care of it. Mirong nodded and said, Ancestor Wu Yu's corpse puppet is almost as powerful as Ancestor Yi's. The more powerful a corpse puppet is, the harder they are to deal with. However, with his strength, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. He looked at Wang Lin, trying to figure out some secrets. Unfortunately, Wang Lin's expression never changed the entire time. Mu Rong pondered a little and said, "Please wait here, Brother Wang. I'll contact Ancestor Yi right away." With that, he slapped his bag of holding and took out a piece of jade. He held the jade in his hand with a serious expression for a moment, then tossed it. The jade flashed a few times, then quickly flew into one of the tunnels. After doing that, Mu Rong looked at a day behind Wang Lin. Just as he was about to speak, Wang Lin spoke as he looked at the blue flame on the pillars with a surprised expression. "Brother Mu, these yin flames contain yin energy as well. They don't seem ordinary." Mu Rong let out a laugh and said, "Brother Wang, this blue fire-lord flame was created by melting the cores of several cow formation cultivators from the orthodox sects hundreds of years ago. After they were further refined by Ancestor Yi, they became treasures of the corpse sect. They benefit our cultivation a lot and are especially beneficial to our corpse puppets." Wang Lin stared at the blue flame. He waved his hand. A sliver of the blue flame floated to him. He observed the flame, then sent some of his yin energy into the flame. Sizzling sounds came from the flame and it turned into a small blue ball floating in his hand. Mu Rong's expression slightly changed to a smile. "Brother Wang, turning this gas into solid form isn't easy without a lot of yin energy. It seems Ancestor Wu really loves you." The last sliver of doubt that Mu Rong had toward Wang Lin disappeared after Wang Lin displayed the move. He didn't know that although Wang Lin's yin energy was similar to the yin method the corpse sect practiced, they were very different. At that moment, the blue flame suddenly dimmed as more and more gas gathered from the blue flames. The gas formed into the figure of a person. The figure emitted a heavy pressure. Wang Lin's pupils contracted. Under the pressure of the figure, he felt a sense of terror. Then, he looked at Mu Rong, who was already kneeling on the ground. A grim voice came from the figure. "You are junior apprentice Brother Wu Yu's disciple?"